Welcome back, guys, to Fear Begins, a step towards the horror. In today's episode, I'm sharing 3 true disturbing stories about cabins in Appalachia, from people who went into the mountains looking for peace and found something else entirely. But before we begin, please consider subscribing and don't forget to like and share it with your friends. Let me know where you're watching from. Thank you all. Now let's start. My uncle owned this old cabin way out in the Appalachian Mountains. He hadn't been up there in decades. He always called it a fixer-upper with character, which if you translate it from uncle speak, meant it's one stiff breeze away from becoming firewood. The offer came out of nowhere. I was sitting in my apartment surrounded by cardboard boxes I hadn't unpacked because, well, I just quit my job and my relationship exploded in spectacular fashion. Life was loud, too loud. And then he called, "If you want to get away for a while, you can stay up there rent-free. Just don't burn it down." That was it. No strings, no conditions. Honestly, I think he have hoped the place would burn down so he could stop paying property taxes on it. But for me, that call was like a rope thrown to a drowning person. I needed out. So, a week later, I was driving into the mountains with half my stuff crammed into the back seat. The drive was long, 2 hours of straight highway, then another hour on these narrow, winding roads that felt like they just curled tighter and tighter around the hills. I lost cell service about 20 minutes after leaving the interstate. My podcasts gave up. Even the radio abandoned me. Nothing but static. For the last stretch, it was just me, an empty road and the hum of my own engine. When I finally pulled into the clearing, I actually laughed. This cabin didn't just look old. It looked like someone had stopped building it halfway through and then forgot about it for 50 years. One room, a porch with loose boards that groaned when you stepped on them, and a deck that leaned like it had given up the will to live, but it was quiet. That was the point. The first couple of weeks were honestly amazing. I slept like a rock, chopped wood, cooked on the old gas stove, read books until the oil lamp flickered low. No deadlines, no calls, no people. My nearest neighbor was supposedly 30 minutes away, and that isolation felt like medicine. And for a while, I believed that the first odd thing wasn't even dramatic, just this weird sense that someone was nearby. You know that feeling when you think someone's watching you? It's not anything you see. It's the way the hair on your arm suddenly stands up like your body knows something before your brain does. I'd be out back splitting logs and then bam, there it was, like eyes on me. Every time I turned, nothing, just trees. I blamed it on nerves. My city brain wasn't used to silence. Then one afternoon, I was down at the creek filling a jug. The sun was dropping fast, and the air had that heavy late-day stillness to it. I turned around and froze. There was a man across the creek, not moving, just standing there like he'd been waiting. He was about my age, maybe younger. Jeans so dirty they were practically brown, a torn flannel shirt, and this beard that looked like he'd trimmed it with a rock. "You staying up in the old Carson place?" he called. His voice carried in this flat, matter-of-fact way, like he already knew the answer. I hesitated before I said, "Yeah." He nodded like that made sense, then he smiled. And listen, this wasn't the friendly kind of smile people give when they meet a stranger in the woods. It was the kind that sits in your stomach wrong. "Name's Wade," he said. "I live close by." I didn't ask where, he didn't offer. We said a few more words, nothing memorable. And then he just slipped back into the trees. No sound, no crunch of leaves, just gone. I told myself it was fine. Just a local checking in. People out here probably did that, right? But after that, I saw him everywhere. At first, it was random. A glimpse on the trail while I hiked down by the creek when I went for water. Always in the distance, always still. Then it changed. I'd step out onto the porch in the morning, and there he'd be leaning against a tree at the edge of the clearing. Not close enough to talk, close enough so I knew he wanted me to see him. He never waved. Never called out, just stared. I tried to shrug it off. People live differently out here, I told myself. Maybe he's curious. Then, the notes started. The first one was on the porch, weighed down with a rock. Nice to see you by the creek. No name, no signature, just neat block letters in black ink. I laughed when I read it, but my hands were shaking. 2 days later, you look tired today. Then, you should come visit. That one made my stomach knot. Visit where? I started locking the door, even during the day. The next morning, I noticed something. My axe, the one I kept in the chopping block, was gone. I looked everywhere. It wasn't like I misplaced it. Someone had taken it. That night, I stayed up late reading by lamplight, trying to calm down. That's when I heard the porch boards creaking. Slow, heavy. I blew out the lamp and froze. Another creak. Closer to the door. My heart was pounding so loud, I could barely hear anything else. I grabbed the rifle from the corner and sat in the dark, listening. One more creak, and then silence. When I finally pulled back the curtain, the porch was empty, but muddy footprints led straight to the door and back into the trees. I barely slept. The next day, I drove into town for supplies and asked the guy at the general store if he knew Wade. Blank look, I described him. The man frowned and said, "Only other cabin up that way burned down 20 years ago. Ain't been nobody living there since." I laughed like it was a joke, but my hands wouldn't stop shaking. That night, I barricaded the door with a chair and kept the rifle across my lap. Around 3 a.m., a dog started barking outside, except I didn't have a dog. The barking was furious right outside the window. Then it cut off mid-snarl. The silence that followed was worse than the sound. Then the doorknob turned slowly like someone testing it. I yelled that I had a gun and would shoot. The knob froze for a second, then turned the other way. When the door didn't open, I heard him move around back. The boards there creaked once. Twice, then nothing. I sat frozen, gripping the rifle so tight my hands ached. 10 minutes passed, maybe 20. Then something slammed against the wall hard. Once, twice, a third time, like he was trying to break through. That was it. I wasn't dying. In that cabin. I climbed out the bedroom, window barefoot, keys clutched in one hand, rifle in the other. I ran to the truck without looking back. When the engine roared, I floored it down the mountain road, heart hammering so hard I could feel it in my teeth. When I finally glanced in the rearview mirror, I saw him standing in the clearing right in the glow of my taillights, holding my missing axe in one hand, just watching me go. I didn't stop until I hit the sheriff's office. They sent deputies up the mountain. They didn't find anyone. But when we went back the next morning so I could grab my stuff, the cabin wasn't empty. On the table, perfectly centered, was a single sheet of notebook paper. In those same block letters it said, "You should have stayed longer." My dad said we needed a real weekend, something to clear our heads, his big idea. The old family cabin buried deep in the Appalachian hills. Just us and nature. My mom did not come. She said the cabin gave her a bad feeling. She even laughed when she said, "You'll see." But her eyes did not match the laugh. By the time we rolled up to the cabin, I had that weird feeling where you are glad the drive is over, but something in you wishes it was not. The place looked like it had given up on being a home a long time ago. Sagging roof, peeling paint, windows clouded like old glass bottles. Dad called it rustic charm. I called it structurally questionable. The trees crowded right up to the porch like they wanted in. No other cabins, no power lines. Just the dirt road curling back into the hills like the world ended here. Inside smelled like dry timber and dust. The kind of smell that clings to your throat. My uncle cracked a joke about it being aged like fine whiskey, and Dad laughed like. That explained everything. We unloaded the gear, sleeping bags, canned food, a lantern since the gas line was long gone. The floor creaked under every step like the cabin was testing our weight. Lunch was beans and crackers straight from the can. Dad and my uncle made a big show of roughing it, but I could tell they missed Wi-Fi as much as I did. Still, for a few minutes, it almost felt like what Dad promised, quiet, simple. Then he said we needed propane. The lantern's little tank would not last the night, so we climbed back into the car. The three of us packed in like we had not just escaped it, and started back down the dirt road that clawed its way out of the hills. That's when I saw the truck. It appeared like it grew out of the trees. Old Ford rust chewing the fenders, one headlight fogged white, no plate on the front. At first, I figured he was just another local heading into town, but then he closed the gap so fast it made my stomach jump, rode our bumper until I could see the paint flaking off his hood. Then he dropped back, then lunged forward again. I leaned forward between the seats. Dad, I see him, calm voice, but his knuckles whitened around the wheel. The truck did not pass, just stuck to us, jerking forward and back like the driver could not decide what he wanted. The road was too narrow for anything stupid. One wrong move and we would be wrapped around a tree. Maybe he wants by, my uncle muttered. Then he can wait, Dad said, eyes on the road. When the truck surged close, I got a look at the driver, pale face under a sweat-stained cap, jaw working like he was grinding his teeth. His mouth moved like he was yelling, but I could not hear over the engine. His fists slammed the steering wheel in sharp bursts, like he was psyching himself up. I spotted the stop sign ahead and felt relief like cool air. Maybe he would blow past us. We slowed. Gravel popped under the tires. The truck braked so hard behind us I thought we would feel the hit. Then his door flew open. A man climbed out. Late 20s, maybe 30. Stringy frame, jeans clinging like he had slept in them. He moved fast, boots biting into the gravel, shoulders squared like a fight was coming. Dad did not wait. He threw the car in park and was out before I could blink. Get back in your truck, he said, calm, flat, a voice that did not need repeating. The guy froze mid-step, jaw twitching, eyes jumping from Dad to the car like he was making calculations. Then his lips peeled back in this grin that did not reach his eyes. His teeth were small, too small, like they belonged to someone else. Another car crested the hill behind him, tires whispering over gravel. The guy's head snapped toward it. Without a word, he bolted back to his truck, slammed the door, and tore past us, spitting rocks like gunfire. For a few seconds, none of us moved. Dad slid back in like nothing happened, started the car and drove. You think he was drunk? My uncle asked. Probably, Dad said, but his jaw stayed locked, and he kept flicking his eyes to the mirror like he did not believe himself. By the time we hit town, my shoulders had unclenched. We grabbed propane and some gas station snacks and headed back. The sun was dropping, staining the trees in crooked orange beams, and then we saw him. Same truck parked in the left turn lane at the crossroads, engine idling like it had been waiting. Dad let out this laugh too sharp like breaking glass. Big rush to go nowhere, he said, then grinned at my uncle. Watch this. Before I could ask, he rolled down his window, leaned out, and yelled, "Hey, jackass." The guy's head whipped toward us. Dad started pounding the steering wheel, screaming nonsense like a lunatic, copying the tantrum we had seen earlier. Something broke in that man's face. The truck jerked backward, tires screaming, then swung out so hard it fishtailed. It came for us like a battering ram. Hang on, Dad said, and wrenched the wheel. We shot across the intersecting road, bouncing so hard my teeth clacked. The truck missed us by inches, spun wide, then came tearing after us. Dad floored it. The sedan shuddered like it was ripping apart, engine howling as we clawed up the winding road. The truck stayed close, headlights flaring in the mirror like molten eyes. Every curve felt like the one where we would go flying. Then the highway ramp appeared. Dad yanked the wheel at the last second. Gravel spraying like shrapnel. We shot up the incline. Behind us, a horn wailed long and low, echoing through the hills like something dying. And then silence, nothing in the mirror but empty road and trees. Dad did not ease off until the cabin came into view. By then, the hills were black teeth against a starless sky. Inside, the quiet pressed on us. My uncle checked the locks twice. Without being told, Dad stood by the window a long time, staring down the dirt road like he expected headlights to bloom out of the dark. Later, the landline rang, the one Mom insisted we keep. My uncle answered, told her everything. Her voice came sharp and clear through the old receiver. "You get my baby out of there now." Dad did not argue, but he did not pack either. We stayed. The night, and I wish we had not, I did not sleep. Every groan of the old floorboard sounded like footsteps. Around 2 a.m., I heard tires crunching far down the road. Slow crawling, I froze, barely breathing until the sound faded. Morning brought no comfort. When we stepped outside, there were fresh tire tracks in the gravel. They stopped just before the trees, then turned back. That was the last time we ever went to the cabin. Years later, Dad still brings it up sometimes, but never with a smile. Because deep down we all know the truth. That man was not drunk. He was not just angry. He wanted something. The cabin was not mine. It belonged to Jenna's uncle. Some old hunting place tucked deep in the Appalachian Mountains. Jenna pitched it like a dream. No phones, no people. Just a wood stove and a weekend of quiet. After the semester I had. It sounded perfect. The drive was long, the kind that makes you feel like the map lied. The farther we went, the more the world thinned out. Gas stations vanished first, then the occasional diner, and then even houses. The last hour was nothing but trees and hills rolling on forever. When the pavement finally gave way to dirt, I swear it felt like crossing into another world. There were 4 of us, me, Jenna, her boyfriend Mark, and Kyle, a friend of Mark's. I had met maybe twice. Kyle turned out to be one of those people who cannot handle silence, so he filled it with random facts, most of the ride. He rattled off Appalachian folklore stuff like, "If you hear someone calling your name in the woods, do not answer. It is not them." I laughed. He did not. That is when I realized he was not joking. By the time we pulled up, the light was fading fast. The cabin looked like something from an old photo. Sagging porch, leaning stone chimney, dark wood that seemed to swallow the last of the daylight. No electricity, no running water, definitely no cell signal. Jenna grinned like she had just brought US to paradise. "We came to unplug," she said. Night one was easy, cozy, even. We got a fire going, cracked a few beers, played cards by flashlight. The air inside smelled like old wood and ashes. Sharp but not bad. Mark started telling ghost stories. The kind you make up as you go. Jenna hit him with a pillow when he tried to make them scary. We laughed until the fire burned low, then unrolled our sleeping bags on the floor. I fell asleep to the hiss and pop of the last embers. I woke up once. Not to a sound, just that weird awareness that you are not home. I lay there staring at the heavy beams overhead, wondering how long they had been holding up that roof. Long enough to feel permanent. Day 2 started fine. Cold, but fine. Jenna wanted to hike. Her uncle had told her about a trail that led to a ridge. No signs, no maps, just head toward the ridge and follow the creek. Sounded simple enough. We packed snacks and set out. At first, it was great. The air felt cleaner than anything I had ever breathed. The ground was springy underfoot, soft with moss and old leaves. We joked, took pictures, argued about who would get eaten first in a horror movie. But after about an hour, I noticed something. Everything looked the same. Trees, rocks, slopes that all blurred together, I mentioned. It and Jenna brushed it off. My uncle hikes here all the time. Another hour later. Even she looked less confident. The light had started to shift, not dark yet, but that dull grayish tone that hints it is coming soon, and that is when Kyle stopped dead. "Did you guys see this before?" We all crowded around. It was a footprint, barefoot, deep in the soil, toes spread wide like the person had gripped the ground. The dirt inside was still soft. None of us were barefoot. We were all in boots. Maybe some local likes to walk around like that, Jenna said, forcing a laugh. It did not sound like her usual laugh. We kept moving faster now. No one wanted to admit we were lost, but we all knew it. My chest felt tight the whole way back. When the cabin finally appeared through the trees, the relief hit me so hard I almost laughed out loud. But then I saw the door. We had locked it that morning. I remembered the sound of the deadbolt sliding into place. Now it was open, just a crack. Mark went in first, muttering something about the wind, but wind does not turn deadbolts. Inside, nothing looked disturbed. Our bags were where we left them, the firewood still stacked by the hearth. Except Jenna's coat. She had hung it by the door yesterday. Now it was draped over a chair in the kitchen. Nobody said a word about it. We just lit the fire and stayed close like the heat could explain everything away. That night, the quiet felt different, heavy. Every creak of the cabin made my stomach tighten. By midnight, Mark and Kyle were out cold, snoring like nothing was wrong. Jenna curled up near the fire. I lay on the pull-out couch, staring at the shadows crawling across the ceiling. Sometime later, I woke up thirsty. The fire was mostly embers, glowing faint red. I padded into the kitchen for water, and that is when I saw it. The back door. We had not touched it all day. Earlier, I had watched Mark fight with the lock. It was stiff, needed 2 hands to force it shut. Now it hung loose. The latch turned. I just stood there for a second, my heart pounding so hard it hurt. Then I relocked it. Did not wake anyone. Did not want to. I do not know why. Maybe I was afraid they would confirm what I already knew. I crawled back under the blanket. Pulling it tight like that would make a difference. I do not know how long I slept before the sound woke me. Whispering. At first, I thought it was Jenna mumbling in her sleep, but then I realized it was not inside. It was outside on the porch. Not words, just sounds trying to be words. Slow, dragged out, like someone learning how to speak and getting it wrong. I held my breath and listened. The whisper stopped. Then came the knock. 3 knocks, soft, almost polite. I wanted to scream, but nothing came out. My whole body locked up. The knocks did not come again. Instead, I heard footsteps, slow, crossing the porch, then the crunch of frost as they circled the cabin. And then nothing, just silence. I lay there staring at the door, waiting for the knob to turn. It never did. When daylight finally came, I opened the door before anyone else woke up. The frost outside was covered in prints, bare feet circling the cabin over and over. Some were small, some long, all pressed deep like whoever made them had stood there waiting. We left an hour later, and I have not gone back to Appalachia since.